I didn't notice my house slipping away all at once. If someone had shown up with forged documents or a moving truck, I would have recognized the threat immediately. Instead, it happened through favors, through convenience, through the quiet assumption that I would always be there. My son married Claire 6 years after his divorce. She was organized, capable, and endlessly busy. At first, I admired her. When she asked me to watch the children for an afternoon, I said yes. When she needed someone home for a repair appointment, I said yes again. When she called because she was running late and wondered whether I could start dinner, I didn't think twice. None of it felt unreasonable. That's what made it difficult to see. Over time, my calendar became less my own. Family plans arrived already decided. I would receive messages that sounded less like questions and more like notifications. We'll drop the kids off around 4. The contractor is coming Thursday. You'll be there, right? I told them you could help. Each request was small enough to avoid argument. Each one carried the weight of expectation. The strange part was that Claire never seemed demanding. She genuinely believed we were working together. The system functioned so smoothly that nobody stopped to examine it, including me. The first moment that unsettled me happened during a family dinner. They were discussing future renovations. Our biggest challenge, Claire said, is figuring out how to use the property more efficiently. The property, it took me a second to realize she meant my house, the house where I still lived alone, the house I had purchased with my late husband 40 years earlier. Nobody corrected her. Nobody looked surprised. The conversation simply continued. I told myself I was being sensitive, but afterward I couldn't stop thinking about it, not because I feared someone was literally stealing my home, because I had slowly become a supporting character inside decisions involving my own life. Months later, I finally committed to something for myself. A close friend invited me to join her on an extended volunteer project in another state. I had postponed opportunities like that for years because family obligations always seemed more urgent. This time I accepted 3 months, 3 uninterrupted months. When I announced it, the room became very quiet. Claire blinked. For 3 months? That's right. What about summer break? I smiled. What about it? The question seemed to confuse her. My son looked uncomfortable. The conversation moved on, but I could feel the shift. For the first time, I was unavailable. Not angry, not resentful, simply unavailable. The problems appeared faster than I expected. Childcare schedules became complicated. RNs piled up. Appointments had to be rearranged. Money previously saved through family help suddenly had to be spent elsewhere. Nobody accused me of anything, but I could hear the strain underneath every conversation. The machine was working harder without its hidden component. Then came the moment that changed everything. A month into my trip, I received a phone call. A representative from a local property office needed clarification regarding paperwork that had recently been submitted concerning my home. The documents weren't fraudulent, but they included assumptions that surprised me. Certain future arrangements had been described as though they were already agreed upon. I asked several questions. The representative paused. To be clear, she said, none of this can move forward without your direct authorization. There was no drama in her voice, no judgment, just procedure, yet something about hearing it from an official source landed differently. Without my authorization, without my approval, without my signature. The next week, a meeting was scheduled. After I returned, everyone attended. The representative reviewed the matter calmly, then she looked directly at me. Mrs. Harris, these decisions belong entirely to you. The room fell silent, not because anyone had committed wrongdoing, because the reality was suddenly impossible to ignore. Years of access had begun to resemble ownership. Years of cooperation had been mistaken for permanent consent. Claire looked embarrassed. My son stared at the table. Nobody argued with the representative. There was nothing to argue about. The authority in that room wasn't emotional. It was legal clear, unmistakable. For the first time, the invisible boundary around my life became visible to everyone, including me. The drive home was uncomfortable. Eventually, Claire spoke. I think I got used to depending on you. It wasn't an apology exactly, but it was honest. I got used to it too, I admitted. That was the harder truth. People often talk about being taken for granted as though it happens entirely because of others. Sometimes it happens because we quietly participate. We say yes again, then yes so many times that nobody remembers there was ever a choice. The following year looked different. Schedules were discussed instead of assigned. Decrees sounded like requests again. Responsibility spread more evenly through the family. Life became slightly less convenient for everyone, and much healthier. Claire and I never had a dramatic confrontation. We never needed one. The lesson wasn't that she was a villain. She wasn't. The lesson was that unspoken expectations grow wherever unspoken boundaries exist. My house remained mine. More importantly, my time became mine again. There was no celebration, no victory speech. Just a quiet evening on my back porch after returning from another trip. The phone rang. Claire asked whether I might be available to help with something the following week. Might be available. I smiled at the wording, then I opened my calendar and checked. For the first time in years, the answer depended on what I wanted.